using them as examples on the side just to kind of help people, because you learn different when you're seeing somebody make the same mistake you do,
right?
Versus me demonstrating it. So let me just watch you hit a couple, and we're going to video them.
I'll try not to. I just hit them. I won't try to think of anything.
Yeah, perfect.
Pretty representative. I'm sure my ass came forward on that one.
Yeah, I saw what's going on.
My cheeks are sore because I'll show you a demo when we get done of how I'm going up and down 100 flight of stairs a day.
Wow. All right, let's take a quick gander at these.
The head moved.
The head movement's not bad, just a little bit, but the big thing, like you said, is your hip movement.
Mm-hmm.
So from there, we've got a lot of movement that we've got to unwind pretty quick, and you don't have time to do it. So so what I look at here during the transition is a ratio of movement of your legs versus your hands. So in other words, how much do your hips shift and rotate versus how far your hands travel. And what you'll notice is that your hands moved already a foot, right? But your hips have barely moved at all. You see that?
Yeah, that's telltale, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So at this point, it's obvious that the arms and hands are doing all the work, which is why you say you're hanging back, which is totally normal. You got great lag, but no dynamicism in your swing. So your lower body is 85% of the issue here. And this is where all your club head speed is going wrong. The lower body just can't do anything to help out. It's just kind of there. So what I want to do is I want to wake up your trunk. Two things that happen in the swing. You can either use your lower body to start moving the club down, or you can use your upper body. And it's one of the other two is going to happen. It's always the same, right? So when you make a big hip turn, as you know, and let's just say that it's 65 degrees of rotation. Let's say it's 20 or 30 more than we need. Well, that hip rotation then needs to wind 20 degrees, but in a quarter of a second. There's just physically not enough time, right? So the less we move our hips within reason, the easier it is to get into a proper impact position and sequence for the downswing. The more we move them, the more we've got to try and unwind them. So to make things simple, the hip movement, what you really need to think about is loading your right hip, your right glute. That's the most important thing that you're going to feel today, is instead of turning, because what you do when you turn is the muscles you need to load for power, you actually do the exact opposite. They have to lengthen in order to rotate. So you're going to learn to feel the exact opposite of what you're used to. You're going to feel a lot of tension in this right glute because we're going to overdo it a little bit and exaggerate it. So you feel like, man, I can actually use my legs. Because right now, your swing is pretty. You got a pretty golf swing, right? But pretty doesn't produce power. Right? You've got a classic looking swing with a big hip turn with no muscle fiber recruitment. At the end of the day, nothing matters more than the muscle fibers that you recruit and the sequence that you unload them. If you need to recruit about 32 pounds of muscle. You don't have it in your arms and shoulders, but if you use your back, legs, and trunk, you got all the muscle power you need. So, first things first is we have to fix what's happening going back. And once you feel this load in your glute and more muscle recruitment in your core, because you have none right now. Your obliques aren't doing anything, your trunk isn't doing anything, because you're moving them so much together, you don't get any separation. You're going to feel that load is what's going to make it easier for you to make a proper downswing. But it's going to feel like you're so bound up compared to what you're used to with your body that your body needs to unwind very quickly. And that's the whole point. It's going to do it automatically for you. So throw the club down for a second. We don't need that. And I want you to put your arms across your chest and go ahead and rotate back. And then I'm going to start making little tweaks here. Okay. So tell me right now what your perception is of your weight. Where is it between your right and left?
Probably 75-25, maybe 70-30.
Okay. So when I look at it, when you first did that turn, you did what most golfers do when they kind of make this rotation move, is that instead of shifting to the right and rotating, you just turn. And so you would move away from this line at address. And so what it feels like is that you have more weight over here than you really do. But because your hips are actually moving away from this right hip line, you're actually counterbalancing and shifting more weight to your left than you realize. So I'm going to hold this here for a second, and your right hip, as you go back, should never move away from this. That felt a little different, didn't it? Now how much weight do you feel over there? That's a true 70%. Now do it the way you did before. Just turn. Now look at the difference. There's a 2.5-inch gap here, right? So Hogan back in the day talked about, this is one of the accurate things he actually wrote about in his book that he did instead of just felt like he did. But this was one of the drills he had, right? He had the old umbrella up against his hip and he said, I just don't want this to move either way. Most golfers do this and they get into this reverse hip shift this way, move away from this. But think about any athletic movement in the world. If you're throwing a ball, this doesn't make sense, right? You got to move into your side and load up. But everybody gets so freaking terrified of sliding and their head moving all over the place that they just end up trying to stay in a barrel, and it actually creates the problems they're trying to get rid of. So don't be afraid to shift it to the right and load, so you're going to feel lateral movement to the right. Now when you look at it on camera, because you're shifting this way while turning, it'll just have the appearance that your hip never moved at all. But you need to see this, or put a stick in the ground, an extra shaft or something, and just hold it there so you can see. There you go. Now as you do this, increase the knee flex slightly. Now when you feel it right back here, right? That's all you're thinking about in the backswing from this point forward, is that. You want to feel that same amount of glute recruitment so that you can powerfully turn into that side. You know, as you're trying to get to load these muscles in your trunk, if you're doing this, you'll feel nothing. But as soon as you feel like you're moving into this right side and this glute, like a pitcher is able to help you move back to the left, that is the whole key to what you're trying to feel, is loading that right leg, going back to help you get back to the left. There you go. Feel like that right leg is coiled up. Now you should start to feel stretching and loading here that you're not used to as well, because your hips aren't turning. You know, you've taken out 30 degrees of rotation. They're still turning 45 degrees, which is fine. There you go. It's a great big full turn. So now load up, and I want you to use the muscles that you feel tension in to help you get back to the left. There you go. Good. Don't turn your chest, right? So.
Oh yeah, I'm trying to.
Yeah, your chest is done at impact. It's square.
That's the other thing I'm trying to. Instead of doing this,
yeah. And you do a really good job. You're not really using your shoulders. You're using your arms to swing the club. I'm trying to get you to use your legs. So at least you don't have the shoulder problem, because that one is harder to fix. It takes more time. Good. Now come back. Good. There you go. Feel your glutes for the first time in your golf swing.
From here, what do you use to get the weight to the left side?
You're going to use, starting out, you're going to use the left side. Here's the easiest way to think about it.
It's the push-pull thing you were talking about
Exactly.
with the truck and everything?
Exactly. You got to use the left side to get everything working.
So you do this. See, I don't have I've been practicing, the wrong, obviously, because of the start, but the squat to get down, because I can tell I'm not using the ground for anything.
For sure. You might as well be sitting on top of an ice skating rink, right? And you want to think about, you want to leave an indentation in the ground or where your feet were. Nobody should ever wonder where you just hit a ball from, right?
Well, even your swing, or the little guys smaller than us that are hitting at 340, and they're jumping up off the ground.
Literally, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you have to create leverage there. But when you're just sitting on top and just turning, you need to have this vertical movement that's missing in your swing. You got great rotation, but too much. You need leverage. Leverage is the most powerful multiplier you got in the swing, right? But if you're just doing this, there's no leverage available to you whatsoever. There you go. Do not turn your shoulders. Go back again. I want you just to focus on your trunk. There you go. Now you're done. Golf swing's done from there. You just release the club and it's over. Perfect. So you're having to focus on this right now, right? That's where your brain's going to go. So next time your wife says, get your head out of your ass, just say, no, I'm working on my golf swing. That's where your brain needs to be focusing, is everything right here, so that you start to feel what it feels like to dig your feet into the ground and grow roots and be able to push off the ground to post up and release the club. That's the whole thing you need to think about.
Well, the interesting thing is I'm doing Pilates twice a week, and it's another neighbor, and she focuses on using this for what I'm doing, and she says, take that tension out of your neck and your shoulders.
Exactly.
And then, but it's the same as the golf swing.
She's a smart Pilates instructor. Right? It's all about the core and the trunk. All movement in all sports, any powerful sport, the movement emanates from the core, right? The whole golf swing is from here to here when you think about
the box, you call it. Yeah.
The box, exactly. And so when you start getting your brain in there, and that's where all of your focus goes on, you stop worrying about the club at the top or what the club's doing, and you start worrying about what your body's doing, that's when it starts working and the club starts going where you want. But most people take the opposite approach. They're worried about what the stupid ball's doing all the time.
Well, reference my earlier question then, if I do this and do that, and I go back, I used to do this all the time, make sure I got a feel of where I should be, and I do this, that's going to make this happen instead of this.
Exactly.
And I mean, we're talking 20, 30 degrees difference.
It's huge.
And, which means if I'm in a bunker, I'm screwed. If I'm, you know, on a tight lie, I'm screwed, and I don't compress the ball.
You can't, right? Because the club is taking over your hands at that point. So to keep compression, you need to keep your hands ahead of the club to keep some shafting on it and keep the club working down.
But
that
in your
happens
experience, this part of it will get most of that remedy.
It's how you get there, right? So forget the golf club for a second. It's just, I'm loading up, going back, I feel my right glute, that's my key checkpoint. I'm pushing my right ankle in the ground, feeling my right glute. That's all I care about. Now from there, all I care about is using this left leg to shift and post up, and now that brings my hands all the way to here. So why would I ever be scooping, flipping, cupping? It's never going to happen, right? Unless you're actively using the right hand. Now what you've done is right in the sense that you have to use your right hand, and that's why you can't get rid of the chicken wing and the flip, because you have nothing else to move the club. You're not using your legs, so you've got to use your right arm because that's your dominant hand. It feels powerful. That's where all of your speed's coming from. So whatever speed you can produce from this is your entire golf swing, which is why you're stuck at 92 miles an hour. When you open up and recruit all of this, this doesn't have to do anything. It can take a break and chill out. And that's why you'll stop flipping and scooping, because by the time you get down here, your brain has done all of the work to get just your lower body to bring the club down. Then all you have to do is just let the club release. But if you start throwing from the top, which you need to do when you're not using your lower body, you're always going to scoop it. You don't have a choice.
So the focus drill-wise would be, you know, back up into the weight shift drills, posture and stance and weight shift. You know, neutral joint alignment, all that kind of stuff.
All that stuff's great, and you have a great setup. You're just missing the key point to your power source, which is all these big chunky muscles. There you go. Good. One of the ways to feel this really easy, because most of us are right-handed, as you know, it's a lead side dominant sport. But this left arm, as you go back, it's put in a really weak position. There's not a lot of power. You just have your rear delt and your lat to help bring the club down. But what it teaches you, if your arm feels weak and you don't have your right arm on the club, well, how would you really produce power? You know, you wouldn't just do this, because that's completely futile, right?
Try to whip it, you know, the towel drill. You know.
Yeah, you're going to use your trunk, right? You're going to go back and be like, all right, if I'm going to really move my left arm really hard like I was throwing a frisbee, I would have to use my body instead of just my right arm. So the trick to a lot of these things is just taking the right arm out of it and then figuring out what natural power sources you'd have, and logically they're going to pop out in your head like, I don't have a choice, but I've got to use my legs because this left arm is so weak. The problem is people don't take the right arm off enough, and they use that for everything.
Well, I look at those VJ and Mickelson videos and I go, I'm not there. You know, they're barely holding on like this at impact.
Exactly, because they're releasing the golf club. What does it mean to release something? It means to literally let go, right? So you should be able to hit the ball exactly the same doing that. My right hand is just a passenger, right? You don't need it there. It's there to help. It does a lot of things. But the whole golf swing in general, you can make it look exactly the same without it on there and get the same feeling of power sources. So take the club for a second, and I want you to load up, ignore the ball for a second. I want you to focus, I don't care where the club goes, I want you to focus on your right hip and glute as you go back. There you go. Now bring that club down with your legs. There you go. So remember I said earlier I was looking at this ratio of how much your hands move during the first half of the downswing and how much your hips move. What you did there was different than your real swing. Your real swing is hands are here, right? Hips barely move. That time you went then down. And that's the whole trick to the sequence. Load the right glutes, all you care about. Good. There you go. A little too much hip turn. So you're going to feel it, right? You're not going to feel that same muscle recruitment when you overturn. What'd you feel there? Better?
Yeah.
Okay. I want it to feel 100% more load on that right glute than what you feel in your normal swing. Double it. There you go. Go to the top and stop. Stop. Sorry, it's okay. Do it again. There you go. So look at good. And if you're not sure, this is when you do the little squat to feel. Oh, sorry, not the squat move in the downswing. This is a backswing check, right? So you go to the top and just squat down. And you really feel that right glute and hamstring. That's your simple way to check it. Then you can come down from there. There you go. There you go. Feel your legs?
Yeah.
They're waking up, right? Looks good. I notice we're not worrying about swing plane or path and any of that stuff, but the club is dropping down perfectly on plane without you having to think about it. Too much hip turn initially. What'd you feel different there?
I could tell I didn't turn my hips as much.
Yeah, exactly. So when you don't turn this muscle, your exterior side of your hip here, when you don't turn, this muscle loads. And when you turn, this muscle lengthens.
Yeah, and all this time I've been focusing on the knee, trying to keep the knee in when the trick is it's here to here.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. It's the box that we talked about. There you go. Try to leave the club up there even a split second longer at the top. Give your hips a little more time. Okay, now here's what you did there. I want you to watch closely. Tell me if you see anything. What did I do?
Well, you turned everything together like it was a little wedge as opposed to
that's part
power
of it.
swing.
Watch my right foot as I went back, as I go back. What did you notice?
Well, it didn't.
As I go back.
Oh, you go back.
Did you catch it?
Roll to the outside.
Yeah, exactly. So what you did was this. This is a pretty weak way to get back the other side, right? So your weight, it's going to start on the inside of your foot and go to the middle, but it should never go to the outside. This is a really weak position. So if you turn too much, your foot's going to start to roll like this. So again, you want to think that this thing is like a big old oak tree anchored to the ground, and it can't roll like this. You're going to stay flat-footed the whole time in the backswing and try to drive it into the ground. I want you to leave an imprint like I just did there. Be heavy on your right foot. There you go. Feel a little different? There you go. Keep doing that. One more for me. All right, let's take a quick look. Big difference there. Instead of shifting your hips this way,
Right.
and notice how your head isn't way over this, because before your hips would go like this,
Right.
which would make your axis tilt look like it's exaggerated, right? Which then makes you hang back even more, because as your hips go this way and your spine's this way, really hard not to hang back from there.
Yeah.
Really hard. Now you're stacked and loaded. That looks great. Now let's check that ratio. Look at the natural down cock there. lag for days right there, right?
Yeah, and that's a wide, narrow wide too.
Yeah, now you just got to let it release, right? And look at the flat left wrist. How are you going to scoop it? It's not going to happen, right? So, this whole little move starts everything. You get that right hip loaded up going back. The sequence of the downswing is more or less automatic, right? Because your brain is saying, God, I got a lot of load. I got a lot of tension over here. What does your brain want to do with that tension? It wants to get rid of it. But you're doing it automatically. You don't have to think about, oh, how do I get my hips to work? It's, you know, obviously you're an athlete. You've obviously played other sports and done things. I can see by the way you move. So if you're going to be an athlete, take advantage of those natural movement, these natural things that you do. Like one of my favorite drills on the site is the Frisbee drill, because it teaches you to load, transfer your weight, post up, and then release the club. You are not loading, releasing the club. Does it make sense?
Yeah, oh yeah.
And that's the whole sequence of it. It's not any more complicated than that. So let's try and hit a couple. Now I would go really slow at first, and I would let your right hand, I would try and not use it, so you could hit them just left-handed at first, but then you want to swing really, really slow. But the tendency, as soon as you put your right hand on there, your brain's going to go to there, not here, right? So really easy, just like, you know, hit them 50 yards. Load the right glutes, all you're thinking about. Nice. All I'm caring about is your hip. That was good.
Okay.
Again. I couldn't care less if you shank it or chunk it. All I care about is, do you load up going back? Feel that right foot push into the ground. What'd you feel there?
Well, I felt like I hit it solidly and that I didn't turn my hip much.
Yeah, let's do even better. I want you to really concentrate on loading and a little bit less rotation. So you're going to feel like you move into that right leg. It's got to move laterally slightly, remember?
Yeah. That's going to be...
Push that right foot into the ground. Not bad there. Again, you're going to start using your arm and stuff, so you really need to concentrate on just this right hip. Like I said, I'd rather you miss the ball completely and load up that right hip correctly. Now, big turn that time.
Really?
This is where video is invaluable, right?
Yeah.
Because your drill is perfect. We saw your drill. It was spot on, as good as any tour pro. How'd that feel?
I compressed that one.
Uh-huh. So when you
How much was that? Still too much turn?
Yep. A little bit, right? It's going to take a little bit of time, right? And I would never recommend you go hitting balls full speed while trying to do this, right? You want to go 9 to 3 drills.
Okay.
Load up, little baby shots, because this stuff, once you do it at 9 to 3, it's easy, right? But going full speed, you'll goof up. But when
it's interesting because my hundreds of practices have been wrong.
So you've learned. A good thing, you can learn, right?
Well, I still got 800 to go, so.
So the key here is when you're practicing to give yourself some sort of physical reference if you're going to be out here hitting balls. So obviously, so a shaft in the ground, a chair, something that you can put up against your hip.
They got the sticks there.
Oh, perfect. You just stick that up against your hip, and every single time go to the top, and you, let me borrow a clip for a second. You know, go to the top and stop, and look. You look at this, you're like, ah, crap. Go to the top, take your time, stop, pause. Like, okay, that's right, and then come down from there. You don't need to try and do it all at full speed. I like to chunk things up a little bit. So stop at the top, pause, check your hip, come down.
Well, my favorite, not my favorite, but one of my favorite videos of yours is the one talking about Tiger Woods, watching him practice for however many hours it was.
Yeah.
And all he did was do this.
45 minutes, the club never went past there and he never hit a single ball. For 45 minutes, because the guy understands how to learn. I mean, nobody has changed their swing as dramatically as he has and stayed competitive the whole time. Because everybody, tour pros are just as schizophrenic about their golf swings as amateur golfers are. And Tiger's one of the worst, really. But he has the discipline to understand how the brain learns new movement patterns.
Well, let me ask you a personal question. What's your trigger then? So, you know, I don't want to do this necessarily.
No. Just neutral.
That's the, you know, Gary Player, or I don't want to turn my head like Nicholas, but, you know, I guess it would be, you know, maybe a slight forward press.
No, I don't like that. Here's the simplest way to do it. Because what you're working on is what? What are you trying to accomplish right
I'm trying to get into this hip and not over-rotate and use my core to turn my body.
Exactly. So you're trying to load up the right glute, the right leg of your body. So the simplest trigger for that, lift that foot and smash it into the ground. Just a small little lift.
I've seen your videos doing that too, and I couldn't get it to work, especially on the downswing, but even obviously on the backswing. So just, I don't even have to lift it. Just get that feeling into the heel.
It's doing two things, right? One, it's giving you the focusing your brain power on your right leg, right? Two, as you push it down, your body has a physical response to this. If you push against the ground is physically pushing against you, right? So you feel this little strike against the ground, and guess what happens to your glute? It activates. So your body counteracts this pushing force against the ground, against you. And so if you do it hard, like just exaggerate it while you're practicing, just kind of like stomp it to where you hear it, and tell me what happens to your glute. It activates immediately. Yep, there you go. And it automatically gets you comfortable shifting to the right to get loaded up over there.
Try it.
Looked pretty good. Load up was pretty good there.
Was it?
Yeah. Not bad. So as you're doing this, again,
well, I'll just do the
you want to slow down
yeah.
and just find the focal point on this. Like I said, even if you go to the top and you stop, check it, and then come down from there. Even if it's not correct, correct it during your pause.
I see.
And then come down. Yeah. Ah, did you see the difference? That's how much difference it was. That's why you need to pause and check it. Yeah, now come down. Good. That's a good result, because you learn to come down from someplace you're not used to, right? And this is the whole trick to this. Chunk it up, break it into pieces like that, slowly start making those pauses at the top smaller and smaller once you know that you're loaded up over there. There you go. Does it make sense? Any questions for me?
Sure. About a million, but I know you've got a long trip ahead of you, and you've got I-25 to go for Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
so
that should be
I
no
want to
problem,
get you
right?
out of here.
Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah, like I said, all right, since it's partial marketing then, tell me why I would want to join now your academy as opposed to continuing and finishing through your 5 steps.
Sure. Well, first of all, you should go through the 5 steps, because that's the core of everything. It's these 5 simple movements that if you learn those, the world's your oyster as far as that goes. The RSA stuff stacks on top of that. So it's assuming that you already have at least a knowledge base of that. Doesn't mean you've mastered all 5 of those steps, but it means that you understand the core constructs, which you obviously do at this point. So once you understand those, then what the RSA stuff does is it takes those into just practical movements. I don't explain all the stuff that we did here. RSA assumes that you know the book knowledge, the intellectual stuff, but from there, we're going to take that and start doing real world drills that you can do inside, outside, whatever. Most of them are designed to be done indoors, and you're doing them as a follow along program where I'm talking you through it. So it would have been, it's like taking a lesson with me today. Like, you didn't recognize that this was going on. You actually knew, but didn't know exactly how to fix it, right? So I talk about, like, the home is that exact move of loading up, watching yourself in the mirror, putting a shaft or something, a chair, whatever, a countertop against that hip, and continuing to move into it to where that becomes natural. Nothing else you need to worry about in your golf swing. Setup looks great, alignment looks great, lag looks great, impact looks great, but the trunk is missing. That's the most important part of the swing. So.
Other than that, how'd you like the movie?
Yeah, exactly, Miss Lincoln. How was the play?
Right. Well, my game plan would be is do this for 2 or 3 months, and then send in 1 or 2 of the 5 videos, if I can figure out how to do it, and send them, and see if whoever
I wouldn't wait that long. I would video yourself doing these drills next week. We don't care about seeing you hit balls. We don't want to see you do the movements, right? So we'd actually prefer that you submit videos of you doing the drills. There's no point in you practicing on your own and doing it wrong for a month, right?
Yeah.
That's the worst thing you could do. So video yourself doing the drill and just saying, I want to make sure that this drill is right before I spend the next month drilling it. That's the smartest move.
Okay.
Just let them say, look, here's what I'm working on. Chuck gave me a lesson, said my right hip was, reverse shifting, and here's what I'm trying to do to fix it. Got a club up against my hip. Tell me if I'm doing it right or wrong. And then they'll be like, yep, here's what you need to focus on. Here's the videos. drill this for the next month. We don't want to see you again for a month, kind of thing.
And how many instructors do you have now?
There's like a 40, I think.
Jesus.
Yeah.
And then Chris Evans, isn't he one of your
Chris Tyler.
Tyler,
Yeah.
yeah. I like Tyler. He does good videos.
He's been with us for a long time, and Chris is one of the sharpest instructors in the world. He really has taken the time to really understand, and he has a huge passion for helping people. So Chris is one of the guys who does the vast majority of swing reviews and online unlimited review groups. His group, he's like 100 members in there or something, so he stays very busy, but this is his baby, so he takes it personal if somebody doesn't get better. So yeah, he's very, very dedicated to that.
Well, that's great. And but I think you've developed a really good program and product, and it's just, most people don't realize, I call it the hangnail theory, that they think they're doing the change that is indicated on the video, and instead of being here, they're here, and it feels like a massive change from here. But when you look at it on video, you go, I didn't change the crap. There's no difference.
That's why you got to use video and mirrors. Mirrors are, I will not make a change in my golf swing without a wall of mirrors. I won't even bother.
So if you're in your early 40s, you should take a hiatus and when you're 50 and give it a go.
I had my share in the days of pounding balls in the sun. My problem is always putting, and I'm a far better putter now than I was when I played professionally, but I still don't have any desire to go out and hit putts
Spend
for
that
2
much
hours
time,
a day,
yeah.
and chipping and doing all. My ball striking was never an issue, so I didn't have to worry about ball striking, but that's the fun part. I'd rather go out and pound balls all day than sit on a freaking putting green and get my eyes comfortable reading grain and all this stuff, and I just don't enjoy that.
That reminds me, when I was